In this video, we're going to look at building the input sheet on our financial model. So up to now, we have done our summary of the existing historical data, and we are now in a position to put together our inputs based on the ratios we have found. So for example, we found gross profit percentages of 40 and 60%. We have found variable cost percentages, 6% of sales is our sales commission, 0.5% is our delivery cost percentage. And we can take these ratios and then start to build our input sheet for our financial model. Okay, so if you remember from the beginning of the course, we said we want to put inputs on a separate sheet. So that's what we're going to do, and we'll call this Munchie Pet Foods Financial Model. Always a good idea to make your headings bold, underline, and we'll call this inputs. Name your sheet, inputs. Okay, so as you remember, we've got our sales of dog food. And the prior year is generally what you take as the base for your financial model. So you take the information from the prior year as your base, and then you project forward. So we've got cat food, and then we've got two branches. If you remember, we've got branch A and branch B. So we want the prior year as our base, and we're going to do our model for 3 years. 3 years and 5 years are pretty standard. You can get 10-year financial models, but we're going to stick to 3 years in this case. I am going to merge and center branch A, and I'm going to format it with a border around. And then all of these blocks, I'm going to do all borders, and you can see everything is divided up quite nice and neatly. I can copy that across into branch B, and then we have a nicely formatted table we can work with. So if we go back to our information for dog food and cat food, we can take our 2012 information as our starting point, and that was our dog food. And this is our cat food. And then we're going to do branch B. So in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the 2014 information and we'll project that forward. So we'll start from that point, and we'll say that we're doing a projection using 2014 data going forward to 2015. So this was 2963 and this was 2868. Try and get your formatting consistent. Use a spacer kind of format so you can see the thousands are separated from the units. It just makes it clearer to look at. Okay, so let's go into our key ratios. We've got gross margin, and we're going to do dog food and cat food. So what we generally do is we put in a guideline, which was last year's gross profit, and then we'll put in figures, and we're going to highlight them in a different color. So I'm going to highlight them in dark blue, and I'm going to make them bold. And then the user can see that the items highlighted in bold are the inputs. I'm going to copy those across. And the highlighted bold blue figures are the ones that the user has to input. And so we can carry on. So I'm going to look at sales growth. We'll do dog food and cat food. I can just copy that down. And we'll put in 8%. And then the user will be able to come and change all these percentages, and we'll use the percentages the user puts in to build our model. We'll need to do our variable costs. That was 6%. Delivery costs. That was 0.5%. And then we have our fixed costs. Now, fixed costs, generally what we want to do is take a inflation figure and inflate the current cost. So we're going to make this cost, and we're going to have an inflation rate. Because the fixed costs are not increasing in proportion to sales, there is no point in using a percentage of sales figure to derive the fixed costs. So instead what we'll do is enter the fixed costs and use an inflation percentage to inflate them in our model. We've got utilities and other operating costs. Okay, so if we go back, we had advertising costs of 370, so we can stick that in. We have salaries of 144,000, and you can see our formatting is not consistent, so I'll just copy that down. We have store rental of 240,000. And then utilities and operating costs. So we've got electricity, water, printing stationery, repairs and maintenance. Add that all together, we come to 84,529. So I'm just going to lump them together. So often in a financial model, we'll have a group of costs that we do not necessarily need to split out for the purpose of financial modeling, because they're not related to some activity like sales, and therefore we do not need to model them separately. And that's what we're doing here. I'm just going to put inflation percentages. I'll just use 5%. It might be a little bit high, a little bit low, but once again the user can change them. And then we need to go and do the same here for the costs for branch B. You get the idea. So this is basically how we'd set out an input sheet for our financial model.